Well, hello. I'm here with Doug to talk about stupid AIs and other things. And it is Tuesday, June 10, 2025. So why don't you start, Doug? You say you got something about Glenn Beck.
Nah, let me save the Glenn Beck one. That's a little bit more involved, but you have an AI story.
Oh, I do.
I've got a sad AI story for you.
Well, let's hear.
Why don't you start?
Okay. Mine
We'll
is
we'll save we'll save the bad news for the end.
okay. Well, mine is the Apple has done research and it verifies what I've been telling all my two classes about AI for a long time. AI is stupid and crazy, is my summary of the situation. Those are not the words they use, but in particular, they checked AI reasoning models and they showed just what I've been telling my students that it doesn't do reasoning really worth a damn. The so-called reasoning goes through breaking a problem into steps and going through the steps. And as I often demonstrate in class, it is very easy to get it confused where it just wanders around lost and gets nowhere. And that's what these guys verified. They say that this stuff called AI reasoning is in fact not remotely close to human reasoning. It's That's why I even think artificial intelligence is a misnomer. It's intelligence simulation. It can cheat on the Turing test. And now it can cheat on some other personality tests, but it doesn't actually have any intelligence because it doesn't actually understand anything it's doing or saying. It's just
I see.
flipping around the words like numbers in a mathematical game, but it has no idea what the words or sentences mean. So you can't really consider it intelligent. It's a video game that creates pages of text that look like a human wrote them without any actual intelligence. Anyway, uh,
All right. Well, I've got one. It's an AI story, and this is the first one that we know of so far, or at least that's mainstream, which is a young man happened to commit suicide after and this took place a couple of years ago, but the reason I'm bringing it up now is it's going to trial. And the young man committed suicide after having AI sessions with a AI psychologist, I
right.
guess.
And I also heard one where they had an AI character emulating a Game of Thrones character. These AI
Yeah.
emulated personalities, people develop relationships with them. In fact, a lot of people say this is going to be a cure for the loneliness epidemic. Everyone's going to have AI friends. So this is very timely.
Well, Sam, isn't that not that much different than the Tamagotchis? Do
I
you
don't know.
remember those?
No, are those virtual pets?
Yeah, the virtual pets.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know how any of them work, but I know people are trying to do this. There are people that make robot pets and stuff, and they're trying to make robot companions for elderly people that are alone and stuff. And uh,
Yeah.
there was
Yeah.
even
Well,
an AI that will call your mom every day to see if she's okay for you. That one's out there. And I'm kind of old-fashioned, but I'm guessing this doesn't really satisfy your mom.
I think it's like the Tamagotchis, which were what, 20 years ago, give or take.
I don't know.
And those were virtual pets that you'd have to feed it and it would poop and you'd have to clean up and pet it. But it was on a little keychain. Seemed to me like it was the dumbest thing ever, but it was very popular.
In Japan, they have virtual girlfriend experience.
Yeah.
She like makes you remember her birthday and buy her flowers and stuff. It's a similar kind of thing.
Yeah. All right. Well, I've got a little side story that I stumbled across.
Yeah.
This is kind of interesting. It's a little political. Oh, wait. So did we finish the story about the young man committed suicide?
Well,
His parents are now suing the AI character company,
yeah.
claiming that the AI encouraged him to commit suicide.
I One thing I've heard is some of them will claim to be licensed psychologists when they are not. And so it seems
Wait,
like
wait, wait. How can you license an AI
well, you can't,
psychologist?
but you certainly can license a psychologist. And because they hallucinate and say whatever they're expected to say, if you ask them, do you have a license? Some of them will say, oh, yes, I have a license. I'm certified by the California board. And then I think you really can sort of sue them for medical malpractice or something.
Yeah, but it's not a person.
Well, I know, it makes no sense, but it does claim
Yeah.
that. And therefore, you're now like practicing medicine without a license or misrepresenting your services or something.
Sam, I get what you're saying, but I wonder, it's like saying a corporation's a psychologist.
Of course. No, I think
Yeah.
that's the issue. If we were actually going to have AI psychiatrists, then we would have to have some kind of AI certification they get, demonstrating sufficient knowledge or something. And maybe that's something we'll have someday, but we don't have it yet.
Yeah, we don't have it yet. So, this is a completely gray area. And I guess it would be analogous to a self-driving car that kills somebody.
Yeah, if it does, then exactly who do you sue? And does the car really have an appropriate license? And I
Yeah,
think you're
do
right.
you sue the programmers? Do you sue the car manufacturer?
Yeah, and is
Um,
the car actually committing a crime driving without a license? Is
yeah,
there a human controller somewhere that needs to have a license? And if so, what license? You know, we have to do
right,
all this with
right.
drones too. If you're flying
Yeah,
a
yeah.
drone, do we need a pilot? Exactly what license should they have?
Well, yeah, or if you have an autonomous drone, kind
Yeah.
of same thing as the car. Yeah, yeah. So, these are all laws
Yep.
that are going to be tested right now.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, interesting times. All
Yeah.
right, so here's a little sidelight, a little tidbit I learned.
Yeah.
Again, changing topics. All countries except for three have declining populations.
I didn't know it was that bad, but this is, of course, a good thing. I mean, when I was a kid, we worried about overpopulation. Having declining population in the grand scheme of things is good, although it creates a temporary economic problem as not enough young people have to support too many old people.
Yeah, so here's the quiz for you. What three countries are increasing in population if all the other countries are decreasing?
Well, I don't know, but I would assume it would be the most poverty-stricken ones that are penniless and starving. That's usually the ones that reproduce the most. But I'm just guessing.
Yeah, that's not a good guess.
Okay, who is it?
So United States,
What? We're increasing?
yeah,
I thought we passed maybe only by immigration, not by reproduction.
correct.
Okay,
Yeah,
our reproduction rate fell below replacement decades ago.
yeah, correct,
But we
correct.
really do have a lot of immigrants. So then maybe all the Republicans that are mad about immigration are right, saying we have too many damn immigrants. Okay.
Yeah, so it's immigration is responsible for the increase in population in
Okay.
all three. So
Oh,
United States, Canada, you want to guess at the third?
well, Mexico?
No, that's kind of what I was thinking too. It turns out to be in the other hemisphere.
Boy, I don't know.
You got two choices.
Well, there's a lot more than two countries over there.
Oh, I'm sorry, in the
In who
southern hemisphere.
in who on the southern hemisphere,
Yeah, and it's not any of the Latinx countries.
then I don't Australia?
Yeah, you got it.
I'm just thinking of who would actually let in a lot of immigrants, and I think Australia will. So yeah, I
I
guess these are just the people that would let them in. Because I know there's very desirable places to go, like New Zealand, but they're very picky. They won't let very many in.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
So in a
yeah,
way, these are like booming economies where they need the workers. So you can go get
correct.
a job. So that actually kind of makes sense. And it's not a bad thing. And it's not overpopulating the planet as a whole that we have immigrants coming in. I'm amazed that countries are not reproducing too much. That's really good for the planet. I mean, we don't really need the human race to expand anymore. We really need it to shrink.
Yeah, there was a TED talk that was given by a Swedish physician who's since passed away. He gave excellent talks, and his name right now escapes me, but it was all about populations and what makes for a country or what makes the birth rate in a country decline
Yeah,
and the standard of living increase.
right.
And
Two
the
things
answer
usually go
is,
together. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. The answer is women's health and
And
educating women.
yeah, women's rights. If women have more rights, then they don't really want to be at home making all those babies anymore. They have other things to do.
Well, correct. Yeah,
Yeah, it makes
yeah.
sense.
And I'm trying to recall his name, because he has the TED Talks are very good, very interesting.
Yeah,
And he presents an argument that the population of the planet is about 8 billion, correct?
I think sounds about right.
Yeah. In his modeling, he shows that the planet will stabilize at about 10 billion.
Good. Because, back in the days of Silent Spring, we thought it would go up to like 50 or 100 billion, and then we would all starve and be polluted and everything would be awful. Probably what we really need is to shrink it down to like 1 billion. Then we could all live comfortably and we wouldn't have to worry about pollution and water supply or anything.
Yeah. So I just took a look here. His name is Hans Rosling.
Yeah, I know him. I read his book. He's dead, but he wrote a very good book about this. Yeah,
Yeah. And what he did, it's pretty interesting. He created a website that I believe is still going on. And I stand corrected here. I'm looking. He claims that the world population will not exceed 11 billion.
good.
Yeah. So anyway, that's a little correction there.
Yeah,
But he's taking world data that each country has, and nobody has combined it together.
yeah,
And he's taken several hundred years worth of data, and his talks are very good, very interesting.
yeah. His book is very good. Factfulness.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
It's very positive. I often tell a lot of people I know are depressed and say the world is going to hell. And I hold up his book and his chart saying, no, in fact, the world is getting better on the grand scheme of things. And he has a whole bunch of measures of ways it's getting better. New movies, science, more libraries, more civil rights, all sorts of things are getting better. There are little blips. There are periods when it goes backwards, like the world wars. But
right,
over a century, all kinds of good things are happening. A number of people dying of preventable diseases going down. The number of people that are starving to death are going down. All sorts of good things are getting better. And it's
right.
mostly due to education. So, yeah.
Yeah, education and women's health
Yeah,
are
all of
the
which
two.
comes together. Yeah.
Right, right. It's a package deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. What's your story? What do you got?
Well, let's see. So the NIH scientists have published a Bethesda declaration rebuking the Trump administration, saying, they really shouldn't be having politically motivated cuts to research funding, which were certainly happening, and everyone's getting pretty sore about that. RFK Jr. has fired the entire CDC panel of vaccine advisors, saying they're all corrupt because they're all connected to mainstream medicine and we need to replace them with real MAGA people. So we're going to go down the vein of witchcraft and stuff. Um, I heard about more from Project 2025 today, and they said Project 2025 says what we should have research into why people staying at home and raising a family is the best thing to do and stuff like that. So this is research where you start from the conclusion and say research consists of finding evidence to back this up. And it reminds me of like in the 70s, do research to prove that marijuana is bad for you. And then when you do research to see what marijuana does, it doesn't seem to be bad for you. And then they say, you idiot, that's not what I wanted to hear. It's like in the 1930s, do research to prove that Jews are inferior. And some people would produce that research, but it wasn't good research. So anyway, this is the kind of science that they're pushing. And I didn't know about chemtrails. Now there's legislation being proposed in state houses to investigate and pass laws restricting chemtrails. Have you heard of this? I heard of this. I didn't know what it meant. Chemtrails is the theory that the trails left by the jet airplanes are changing the weather. And it's a government conspiracy to change the weather and cause droughts and stuff. And they need to stop doing that. And apparently, this is completely unbased, not true. Those trails are just water vapor. But several states are taking it seriously, just like several states are passing rules that history books must now teach that Trump won the election in 2020. So we're turning increasingly into a theocracy with, false facts being taught to our children as facts. And
Sam, we are. This whole chemtrails thing goes back, what, 40, 50 years?
well, I think so. I mean, of course, just anecdotal. You look in the sky, you see those trails, they look like clouds. You say, well, maybe that's affecting the atmosphere or something. I think it does, in fact, harm the ozone layer. But anyway, they have unfounded conspiracy theories exaggerating and misinterpreting what those chemtrails do. Um,
Yeah. Well, the one that I was told, or when I was growing up, was that it's a chemical that's affecting us, and we're all being sprayed with it.
Well, that
So, so,
you can see
so,
how you
you
might
know,
believe that. Yeah.
yeah, but then the question becomes, how do the sprayers and the people that have ordered it to be sprayed
Oh.
protect themselves?
Oh, well. Oh, so you're saying they deliberately put some kind of poison there. That's another
Correct.
issue. I was assuming it's just like exhaust, like from a car that accidentally contains some harmful chemicals. That might very well be true.
Well, wait, the chemtrails are just water vapor.
Apparently so. Water vapor. There's also going to be some combustion products from burning the fuel.
No, no, not in chemtrails.
Well, there's clearly the planes do emit that stuff somewhere, and that probably has some deleterious effects.
Well, all it's doing is it's making a cloud.
Well, yeah, but there also must be some like exhaust from the engines.
That's separate, but
Right, that
that's not
probably contains like some soot or something. So there probably is some harm being done by the planes burning all that fuel.
there is, but that's the chemtrails are
Right,
the white streaks behind the
right.
plane.
And that's just water vapor. Yeah.
And that is just water vapor that's caused by simple physics. It's
Because the
fog.
pressure falls and it causes the water to condense. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And you know where I saw the most beautiful picture of that, or a classic example?
Uh,
This was years ago, and I know that there's a photograph of this someplace. It was the wind blowing in through the Golden Gate Bridge. It would hit Alcatraz. The wind would rise up, and there's a flagpole on Alcatraz. And at the very tip of the flagpole, a chemtrail was created.
this might explain, New Zealand's native name is the land of the long white clouds because it has these
Oh,
mountains and they have these skinny clouds that look like smoke coming over them. It's a common weather effect down there, and that might be for what
yeah.
you described. Yeah,
Yeah. So, I mean, this is it's absolutely beautiful because
yeah,
it's a completely clear day, but the temperature is just right with the dew point. If you know what the dew point is,
yeah,
that's where it becomes saturated. And by the wind blowing in, the water, that the air that's rich in moisture, by raising up to the top of the flagpole on Alcatraz, it's just high enough and the conditions are just perfect to
yeah,
create this long stream that goes I don't know, part of the way across the bay.
yeah. Makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah, it makes perfect sense, right?
yeah.
But no, of course, that's not what it is. Somebody's putting chemicals into the plane somehow that the pilots don't know about, that
Well,
the
yeah,
ground crew doesn't know about on every flight.
yeah, yeah. I saw they had all these protests in Los Angeles, and the Trump administration has now deployed the Marines there and all sorts of crazy things. So it's
Wait, are they the brown shirts or the black shirts?
I'm not sure. They
Okay.
already deployed the National Guard, and they had to overrule the governor to do it. And both the governor and the mayor of the town and the chief of California police have all said, no, we don't need any help. All you're going to do is make things worse by creating unnecessary violence. And Trump came in and overruled them, brought in the National Guard, and now the Marines.
The
Um,
Marines. The
they,
Marines
they,
can't do that.
they threatened to bring in the Marines, and I
Oh,
think
threat.
they might have already done it. No, they have deployed the Marines to Los Angeles, but I think both the Marines and the National Guard are just like hanging around in barracks without any clear orders because the people in charge don't know what they're doing. They'd like to order them to just go out and club everybody in sight, but they aren't quite doing that yet. But anyway, that's uh, that's the situation down there. And the thing that reminded me of is there were some drones or police. Um, they wrote a report um, analyzing the flight path. They sent some planes to circle around the protests to observe them. And they had a plane that was circling, and they had a drone that was making a hexagon pattern, which surprised me. You had the pattern. So apparently, drones, when they are ordered to hover over a spot, they fly in a hexagon. And I was wondering, why in the world would it be? And it's a perfect hexagon, repeating it. And I'm thinking they must have a stupid AI like the bot that controls a Roomba robot vacuum. Because the robot vacuum goes in a straight line until it hits the wall, then it turns, then it goes in a straight line until it hits the next wall. And I guess they just programmed it to like turn, go straight line, then turn, and it's easier to program like 6 turns than to program a circle.
That's interesting.
I know. I've never
Um,
seen such a strange thing as an airplane flying in a geometric pattern like that.
so it must have some difficulty flying in a circle or in an arc.
Yeah, yeah. And this must be the easiest way to program it or something.
Yeah. Huh.
I know that, and they have the.
That's kind of interesting, Sam. You just kind of you're making me think about this. This is like the difference between analog and digital in
It is.
flight.
I know, and
Yeah.
I would think a gradual curve would be the easiest thing, and just turning sharply and making a corner would be the hardest thing. But that's what he did.
Yeah, but I'm thinking if you drew it, if you had geo boundaries,
Yeah,
it would be easier to draw with straight lines. And it would
yeah.
be easier to update the straight lines than an arc, than fly around this point.
I guess.
Or maybe it could do both. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Just
That's interesting.
I know. I was anyway. So uh, Trump. So Elon Musk and Trump have broken up, and Elon is
Oh,
now accusing him of being in the Epstein files, which is certainly true, although it's no new. We all knew that 20 years ago, and but the part that surprised me, Trump said Elon Musk better not donate money to Democrats or he will face serious consequences. And that's pretty seriously an invasion of the First Amendment and American rights. Elon Musk is not allowed to donate to Democrats or he'll get punished by Trump. This is
sounds more like a threat to me.
it is a threat and it's a really deep level of corruption. Just like Trump the first time said he was going to jail Hillary, jailing your political opponents, forbidding people from donating to your political opponents. This is close to what they do in like Russia, where they execute your political opponent, jail him, render him ineligible to be elected by some
Right. Right.
accusation. That's pretty extreme level of corruption.
I would agree, Sam. I agree.
Yep.
You know,
Anyway,
since
yeah,
since you brought this up, this kind of brings my other big story.
yeah,
This is kind of a involved one that it does deal with Glenn Beck
yeah.
indirectly. And this has to do with the Mormon church.
Oh,
And there's a gentleman by the name of Ballard. And you have to watch it because there are two people by the name of Ballard in the Mormon church. One of them has passed away and was part of the 12 apostles that essentially are in charge of the church. Now, the other gentleman by the name of Ballard created an organization called OUR or R, and his claim was that there's, Sam, tell me if you've heard this before. There's massive um, um, human trafficking and um, uh, and underage kids pornography and the whole Epstein thing, but with young children.
well, that's QAnon stuff. That was the standard thing that Hillary Clinton is running a pedophile ring or something.
Yeah, yeah. And it turns out that he was he was endorsed. Ballard was endorsed by the other Ballard and the Mormon Church, and people gave hundreds of millions of dollars to this guy Ballard.
Yeah.
And it's been going on, and he was a close friend of Beck, Glenn Beck, and the two of them would talk all the time. And it turns out that he's now brought up on charges of rape and other, things. And it turns out that the videos, the videographers who happen to be Mormon, or actually now ex-Mormons, who are hired to videotape, he was trying to make a show, like a reality show, like 60 Minutes to entrap a pedophile. Except they were going out there and they were trying to find in foreign countries the kids that are part of these pedophile rings. So he traveled to Haiti. Turns out that he hired about 100 kids who were all 18 years or older, so above the age of legal consent, to go to this island to give sexual favors to anybody that went there. And his goal was to film this, sell it to National Geographic,
Man.
but National Geographic wouldn't pay him enough money. He wanted more money.
Oh my God.
So, in doing this, he got a number of Mormon women, convinced them that they had had relationships in previous Mormon lives, meaning sexual relationships.
In past
Sam,
lives, though.
in past lives, these Mormon women are now married to somebody else,
Yeah.
but in order for them to play this ruse, they were hired and they were supposed to go to Haiti and other countries and act as if they have some, sexual relation between the two of them, or sexual fantasies where they want to hire young boys to be involved with them. Now, the women would have to practice with Ballard in the hotel room before they would go, and they'd go out and do these runs to save these kids.
It's always this way. Every accusation is a confession. Everybody that makes a big deal out of this sex stuff is always doing it themselves. That's why it's on their mind.
Yeah, yeah. So there's six, seven, eight, nine. The number keeps growing of women
Oh, man.
that claim, rape and sexual misconduct, all those kind of things, and they're suing Ballard. So Ballard leaves the Mormon related organization, Mormon endorsed organization called OUR, creates a new organization. Guess what it does?
Same kind of stuff, I suppose.
Yes, rescuing kids.
There are so many of these. There was another one that a bunch of Hollywood people were in, some kind of sex cult. This stuff keeps happening over and over and over.
But this was endorsed by the Mormon church at the
Well, yeah.
very, very highest level.
Well, that's not as common. Yeah, you're right. Usually the churches don't endorse this stuff.
Now, he was a Mormon in good standing, which means he was sealed in the temple and that he was going to have a celestial afterlife that was the best life you could have in the Mormon religion.
Well, they
Now,
should they should at least excommunicate him or something. I mean,
they did,
okay.
but it's rumored, we don't know for sure, that he's had a second sealing in the temple. And if you have a second sealing, you're forgiven of all your sins. And
Yeah,
you can go and live in the celestial sphere with God, and you'll become a God in your afterlife.
yeah, yeah.
And a
This all
sec,
happened with the Catholics and it happened with the Protestants too. This keeps on happening.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
But the Mormons are the ones who happen to have quite a lot of money. And as we learned when they got in trouble with the Securities Exchange Commission about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, they have over, do you remember how much money they have?
No, but I know they have a lot of real estate.
They own 2% of Florida, 2% of the public land in Florida.
Yeah.
And it was initially released around $50 billion. But finally, when the Securities Exchange Commission got done with them, it was 225 billion. And now it's estimated to be 300 billion.
I bet the Catholic Church is much larger though.
I've tried to find out. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Well, I
I
don't
don't
really
know.
know either. They've been around a lot longer and they had
Right.
all over the world.
They have more artwork.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, interesting story that just happened to pop up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah.
That one
So
keeps on happening.
yeah, yeah. This is a perpetual story.
Yeah.
And it's like same story, different TV channel, different actors, different characters, but the
Yeah.
plot line is pretty much always the same.
You got to be a careful shopper of your religion. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Um, all
What do
right.
you got next for us?
Well, there's iVerify has found evidence of another zero-click mobile exploit, and this one only had a few cases, but it just brings up a thing I brought up a few times. When students come to me and tell me somebody has hacked their iPhone and they can see everything on it, I no longer think they're crazy. There really is malware out there that does that, and they found another strain of it. So it's increasingly common when I see these articles. So It's not that it happens to a lot of people, but there are some people. If you're willing to pay for an expensive exploit or you have access to like a military exploit, you can really hack people's phones and ruin their whole life.
Yeah.
And so you'll be excited by this. The FAA wants to improve their technology. They're going to eliminate floppy disks and stop using Windows 95. So
Well, why would they do that?
I know, I know. And also from the article, it sounds like they're also using paper tape. So they're talking about an upgrade. And this is kind of what motivated Elon Musk and Doge. They said, you government people are using horrible old stuff. This is ridiculous. And they're not wrong about that. Now, they had an, an unnecessarily messy way to upgrade it, but they're right that government could stand to have some upgrades in their technology.
Yeah, well, wasn't it the California Department of Motor Vehicles that spent around 400 million to upgrade the DMV computers about 8, 10 years ago and failed?
Yeah, I know there's been a lot of failed upgrade projects.
Yeah.
So and the Doge is basically another failed upgrade project.
That's a good way of phrasing it.
Yeah,
But Sam, here's the question. With the ATC, right, if they're using paper tapes, all that stuff,
yeah.
and Windows 95, we'll assume that they're not connected to the internet. Is that fair? We
I
don't
wouldn't
know.
assume that. They probably are.
Windows 95, could you connect to the internet?
Oh,
I
yeah. Windows 95 had Internet Explorer. I totally used it to connect to the internet. Everybody did.
I thought it was Windows 98.
Oh, no. Windows 95 had the internet connection wizard in it and everything, I think.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
I'm a little and anyway.
You certainly connected to a local area network to get to the shared printer.
Yes,
And
yeah,
and you could use TCP/IP for that. And I think some of them connected. The internet wasn't that common, but we did it at my company. We did it with MS-DOS was connected to the internet, I think. Yeah, we got email on MS-DOS. We upgraded to Windows 95, and we had the internet at all stages of both of those, at least a local area network. And I think we did have like dial-up modems going to the internet. We didn't use them very much, but they existed. A few people had email.
all right. So I am mistaken.
Yeah.
And you're right. Windows 95 did include built-in support for TCP/IP,
Yeah.
but here's the but. It wasn't installed by default.
Right, right. And
Yeah,
you had to go through this weird wizard to connect it, but you could, and I'm sure everybody nowadays does.
yeah, yeah. So I thought that was Windows 98 and Windows 98 second edition.
Well, I think it got improved there.
Yeah, right. Was there a Windows 95 second edition?
No. And Windows, there was just the first one, which would crash with the blue screen of death every 2 hours, which is why
Yeah,
Microsoft had to add the auto save to Microsoft Word. Because this was one thing about Windows 95. You kept on losing your stuff because it would blue screen.
yeah, yeah. But they didn't include that for Excel or PowerPoint, just Word.
Well, I didn't notice it in Excel or PowerPoint. Word was the main thing we used, so it was the main thing that irritated
I
me.
lost many spreadsheets.
Yeah, I wasn't
Many,
making spreadsheets at
many.
that time. The main thing we used was Word, so that's all I noticed.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
That's a long time ago now.
Yeah, it is. And it's in the rear view mirror
Yeah. But
getting
apparently
small.
not at the FAA. It's not in the rearview mirror there.
Yeah. So here's my question. It's been working since 1995.
Yep.
From best of our knowledge, it's not been hacked.
Well, in fact, they mentioned that it was spared some recent outages, like the one caused by that enterprise class security product that brought down all the Windows servers about a year ago. Uh,
Yeah.
but the other servers were not affected because it was Windows 95. So at
But
some point, you're immune to modern attacks because your crap is so old.
yeah, it's just hard for me to believe that those computers are attached to the internet.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
But I imagine it's getting hard to find components and keep them in repair and stuff.
Right. 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 Right.
Anyway, I got one last story,
All
which
right. One more.
again something kind of obvious, but in case anybody thought otherwise, enterprises are getting stuck in AI pilot hell. The enterprises have rolled out AI projects, and then it turns out that they really don't work very well and that people don't know how to use them, and they end up wasting time and doing bad work. And they've determined that there are serious security issues that no one understands. And basically, these AI pilots are not going very well at all. And, I think Gartner is wise. Like a year ago, Gartner put generative AI at the top of the hype cycle, which means it's gotten about as good as it's going to get, and people are beginning to notice the downside. And they're
Got
about
it.
to like turn against it and start hating it. And I think we're passing right there. We're passing into the down cycle where everybody hates AI. Then, of course, it'll hit the bottom and then it'll come back up and just be another thing of some value, but not that great and not that bad.
Okay.
So that's it. That's all I had.
Yeah, I think that's it for me for this go round.
All right. So I have another one of these on Friday.
Yeah, we'll resume on Friday. We'll see what news we have